And we welcome you into this week's edition of The Locker Room. Got a great show for you coming up. We're going to talk all about the Calhoun County basketball tournament this past weekend. Also, Daquan Ross went one-on-one with our very own Mickey Shaddricks. We'll have that coming up as well. But Gerhard, we were there for the county tournament last week. They seeded things a little different this year, and I think it worked out great.
Yeah, it did. And it had basically all chalk on the boys' side, just about, but we had intriguing matchups, lots of good games going from the quarterfinals into the semifinals. Then, of course, the championship game was just magnificent on the boys' side. Then on the girls' side, you had the major upset. You had the Oxford Lady Yellow Jackets beating the defending county champions in Anniston. Then they played a great game. You also saw some sleepers like Pleasant Valley girls that played pretty well. The Ohatchee girls did well for themselves. So it was all around just a magnificent tournament.
And let's talk about that boys' championship game. Anniston and Sacred Heart. Sacred Heart, of course, the favorite coming in. They've had such a great season. But Anniston, what a game they played.
Yeah, they played the game that they needed to play, and they got out to a hot start. And, credit to Daquan Ross, you'll hear from it later on in this show, but he was just on fire. And what really turned out to be the difference of the game was the lead that Anniston got out to at the very beginning, and really they were able to create the separation that they needed. And so even a team as talented as Sacred Heart, they chipped away late, but they couldn't ever close that gap. They ended up losing by 3 points and missed 9 free throws. So it tells you the kind of game that it was, and you can see right here on these images just the kind of the energy and the atmosphere that it was for the Anniston Bulldog boys to come up with a W.
And it was a special night. The report came out late Friday night from EASportsToday.com that Schuessler Ware, this would be his final Calhoun County championship game. He's going to retire at the end of the season, and that really motivated these guys, I think.
Yeah, it did, and I think that it really kind of lit more of a fire, which the fire was already big anyways, because Sacred Heart, as we talked about for the longest time on this show and several other platforms, they were the hunted. And now they were the state champions, and now they were the defending county champions. And then they ran into a team that, number one, was talented, but two, now had the motivation to beat them. And so when you add those two things together, then the hot shooting start that they got out to, it was just, it seemed meant to be, not only for Anniston, but also for Coach Ware.
And you had a chance to speak with Coach Ware following the game on our television broadcast. And here's a piece of that as he talks about his final game, his final championship game of the Calhoun County tournament.
Last county championship. I see that smile on your face. Talk about how much this means for you personally. I know it's a team game, and I know you'll deflect on the kids, but just how gratifying it is to win in your last county championship.
Oh, always big to win that. I think that's number 8 for me. Which is really good. That's something that you look forward to. You'll definitely want to go out. Not winning the county because the county is so big. This is probably the biggest tournament in the state, in any county, and with this addition here, fans able to get more involved the way they did the arena, it's really nice.
And Coach Ware has had a lot of success at Anniston. We wish him the best as he retires at the end of the season. But let's move to the girls' championship game. We had the pleasure of calling that one together right here on TV 24. We knew Saxe was a great team coming in, but what a game they had, led by Deja Johnson.
Yeah, and they got out to what was a strong deficit at the very beginning, and the Oxford team kind of, after beating Anniston, they really fed off that momentum in the semifinal game, and then they led right into the championship game with that same momentum. Got out to a 12-3 lead, and it looked like Saxe was buried because Oxford had the size advantage on them, but they also had the shooting advantage on them, but then just chipped away all game long. And you talked about Deja Johnson. It's a good shot of her right there. She led these girls, and they had a lot of help from Jordan Kirksey and a lot of other players that really stepped up and played their role. But Coach Morgan Lively has a great team, and Deja Johnson was the MVP of the tournament, and really rightfully so, just because she was incredible all week long, especially on Saturday night.
And like you mentioned, Coach Michelle Lively has done a great job with these girls. Saxe has always been one of those teams to compete, but this year they looked at another level.
They did, and they looked at a level that can possibly make a run for state. And Coach Lively has been interested and really excited about this bunch for a long time. She saw the talent was there, but she said they needed to come together. They needed to be cohesive. And one of the things that Deja Johnson said after the game to John Holder was, we finally played as a team. And I think that all those things are starting to click together for this team. Now with their second county championship in the books, now hopefully they can, use this run into the area and then into the regionals, and hopefully we'll see them in Birmingham.
Well, let's shift gears now to college basketball. Let's talk about the Alabama Crimson Tide. They defeated Tennessee this week. This is only their second conference win, though, for this Alabama team.
Yeah, they've been up and down really all season long, and you kind of expect that with a new coach, with Coach Avery Johnson getting his players in his system, understanding what they need to do for his system. But one of the things about Alabama that I really like is that they're really doing it from kind of everywhere. They don't have that one guy. Retna Obamasan has been great for them. You also had Riley Norris, the Albertville native, who's been phenomenal. He shot the lights out in the South Carolina game in a big upset win. But you're seeing that. You're seeing the kind of these ebbs and flows. If you look at the Dayton game where they got blown out up north, and then you look at the South Carolina game, and then you look at last night's game, they're all kind of three different games. One they got blown out, one they played really well in, and then in another game they beat a team that had a huge second half lead, came back to beat them. So they're doing it in a variety of different ways, but I think their inconsistent play, it kind of leads to the fact that they were led by a first-year coach, and they'll smooth things out. But so far, so good for Coach AJ.
Now, last week they lost to Auburn, so let's talk about Auburn now. They had the big win over Kentucky. What a season Auburn's had so far.
It's been marred by injuries, and Coach Bruce Pearl has done a phenomenal job of trying to piece this thing together. Taj Shams Hadid, he got injured at the beginning. They've had injuries with Chris Canty and some of the other guys, but they did pick up a huge win over Kentucky. They picked up a win over Alabama. But they've had kind of ebbs and flows too, and I think their ebbs and flows are a little bit different from Alabama's ebbs and flows because Bama's a little bit more talented as a basketball team right now, but Auburn, they can put it together as a team pretty quickly, and they can get different guys to be their leader and be their star. And Coach Bruce Pearl has a lot of work to do because he's piecing this thing now like a baseball team, more so than like a basketball team. Not really relying on stars, just saying, hey, call this guy up from AAA, call this guy up from AA, and see what we can put together.
You mentioned the coaching part with Alabama. Auburn went through the same thing last season with Bruce Pearl. Is it a similar situation?
Yeah, I think so. I think it is, but I think the thing about Bruce Pearl going into his situation as compared to Avery Johnson, Bruce Pearl didn't have as talented of a team leading into it. Bama has a little bit more talented of a team, and I think the biggest thing about Alabama is that they retain their point guard, Retna Obamasan, and he's just been the guy. Whenever you have a good point guard, that really leads into good ball movement on the floor. He can be the extension of coach on the floor. The point guard situation, I think, worked out a whole lot better for Avery Johnson in year one.
All right, well, we're going to grab our first timeout, and coming up on the other side of the break, you'll see Mickey Shatter's one-on-one interview with Anniston's DeQuan Ross, and more high school basketball talk coming up.
And welcome back to the Locker Room Show. It's time now to go one-on-one from Anniston High School with Bulldog post player DeQuan Bam Ross, who helped lead the Anniston Bulldogs to the upset win over top-seeded Sacred Heart last Saturday night at the Calhoun County Basketball Tournament. And Bam, I called it an upset because technically Sacred Heart was the number one seed, but I know from talking to you last week, you guys and you and your teammates really don't view this win as an upset, do you?
No, sir. We just looked at it as another game, and we just wanted to win the county and prove to everybody who doubted us that we could win it.
This was a huge win, not only for your team, but for the whole school. Talk about what it meant for Anniston High School as a whole, for you guys to go out there on Saturday night and perform the way you did.
It was very good, especially as it being Coach Ware's last Calhoun County tournament. It was very good. We just wanted to win it for him and for the seniors.
Now, I know you guys kind of had the red carpet rolled out for you a little bit here at the school. You said on Monday the team was treated to homemade brownies, and I understand today after practice the Anniston Superintendent Darren Douthit is taking you guys out to eat. Is that right?
Yes, sir. Golden Corral.
Talk about the reception you've gotten from your classmates, from other teachers coming back to school this week, because, I know this was a big win for the whole school.
Well, it was a lot of respect because some people thought that we really weren't going to win it, but as far as them coming out and support us, that we made them happy so they didn't waste their money coming to the game. And they respected me a lot. I had a lot of handshakes and high fives and good job and great job coming in Monday to school.
Well, let's talk about why they respected you. What a game you had on Saturday. You came out guns a-blazing. You had 4 threes in the first quarter alone. You had a 3 in the second quarter plus another basket. You had 17 points at halftime, wound up with 23. Talk about how you started off that game. Did you come out of the locker room Saturday night planning to be that aggressive on offense?
Not really. I wanted to focus on defense because I knew they had a good post player, Deontay Woods, which he's a very good player. I didn't think I was going to come out shooting as well as I did. I was focusing on more defense, but offense came quicker than defense did.
Offense came very quick. I also noticed you've really been working on your three-point shot. Of course, a little bit of disclaimer here. I know Bam very well because we've been to a lot of travel basketball tournaments together with a team that I coached, and so I've been around this young man for about the last 2 or 3 years. I know he can shoot. A lot of people around the county didn't realize how good you could shoot the ball, but you've really turned a lot of heads with your three-point shooting. I noticed Saturday night you were positioned in the corner. You weren't in the lane. So it had to be part of Coach Ware's game plan to get you some three-point shots.
Yes, sir, because the corner is where we have a play called special. I set up at the corner. We beat the team down the court, and they give me the ball in the corner, and I either drive it or take the shot if I got it.
Every shot that you hit, did your confidence just build?
Higher and higher every time. Like, momentum was all the way up for me, all the way.
Another special part of the night for you, I know, was the fact that your cousin, Hakeem Ross, came off the bench. He had a big game. He was also in double figures. And in the first half, it was like the Ross cousin show. Talk about how neat it was to see you and your cousin both play so well in this big a game.
Well, it was very neat, but for us looking up from our cousins, the Landrum brothers, which played very well in their kind of tournament while they was in school, we wanted to prove to our family and friends that we could do it just as well as they did. But it was very good that me and him was on the same page, and we was trying to get the rest of the team to get on the same page as well.
You mentioned a moment ago this was Coach Ware's final county tournament, and how much of that played into the emotion and the intensity that you guys came out with Saturday night?
The intensity was just it was very aggressive. It was a no-lose. This Coach was last year, so it wasn't no losing for him. We wanted to win this county for him, and tied up with the legendary Larry Gins, and just we weren't trying to lose for Coach Ware his last year. We wanted him to go home with the county tournament win and the state win if we could get there.
They made a run at you in the second half, which we knew they would. They got going in the third quarter. They cut it down to, I think, 3 points a couple of times. Did you ever have any doubt in the second half of that game that they were going to come back and be able to beat you?
Not really, because that's the part of basketball. It's a transition thing. They're gonna score just like you're gonna miss a shot. They could score off foot. They can miss a shot. We could score off foot. But we just knew we had this game won. Like, there wasn't no looking back, no turning around, none of that. We just wanted to win.
Let's talk about where you go from here. Now that you're county champs, you still now can play for a state championship, something that has happened twice here at Anniston High School in history of the school. You're in pretty good shape in your area. You get to host the area tournament, and you've got a good big stretch of games coming up beginning Thursday night. You play Talladega, then you have Parker on Friday and Selma on Saturday. Do you guys think you can carry the momentum from this county tournament into the remainder of your schedule and on into the area play?
Yes, sir. I don't think my team, we're not trying to lose any more games from this point on, which we shouldn't have lost the 3 that we did lose, but we're not trying to lose no more games. By us winning the county, that gave us all the momentum and let us know that we could continue and finish out this season strong.
Great interview there with Anniston's Daquan Ross there with Mickey Shaddricks. And Gerhard, Mickey mentioned in the interview, Daquan just set up right in their corner and was open all night long.
And he made the most of it. And that's, I think, one of the things that at the very beginning of the game, you see the big man taking a shot, let him take it. And then 2 or 3 shots in, now you got to respect it. And by that point, he's already feeling it. And so it just kind of, all things kind of came together at the, and he knew exactly where to go. He knew where his spots were, and he made the most of his shots.
Well, let's take a look now at our high school basketball power poll for East Alabama, and we'll start with the girls first. At number 1 is the Anniston Bulldogs We kept them there at the number 1 spot. Spring Garden at number 2. Sachs Wildcats, the impressive Calhoun County Championship, at number 3. The Gadsden City Titans at 4. The Oxford Yellow Jackets at 5. We saw them defeat Pleasant Valley in overtime the other day. Pleasant Valley comes in at number 6. Jacksonville at 7. Piedmont 8. Ohatchee 9. And Boaz at 10. And for the boys power poll, let's take a look there. Thanks to DeQuan Ross and company, Anniston has moved up to number 1 in our power poll. Sacred Heart comes in at number 2. Gadsden City at 3. The White Plain Wildcats at 4. Alexandria at 5. Cherokee County 6. Piedmont Bulldogs at 7. Westbrook 8, Talladega 9, and Oxford 10.
Yeah, really interesting power poll there. And one of the things that jumps out at you is that the top 3 spots, and they've been kind of interchangeable really over the course of the last about 6 weeks or so.
Right.
But the Anniston Bulldogs, I think they earned their spot there at number 1. And just like when Mickey talked with DeQuan, they want to stay there. They want to be able to use the momentum of the county championship and surge right back into where they feel they rightly deserve back in Birmingham. And we'll see with Sacred Heart and with Gadsden City, they'll make some noise over the next few weeks too.
All right, well, we're going to grab another timeout. When we come back, it's the Locker Room Roundtable, so stay with us. Back here in the locker room, and it's time for the Locker Room Roundtable. And our first subject here, Cam Newton. Interesting season for him, only losing 1 game so far. The former Auburn quarterback. You either love him or you hate him.
Yeah, he's been the story of the league, and it's kind of refreshing to see just the people around the country notice what people in Alabama have noticed for a little while. Just kind of the gift that he has and the specialness that he has. But you're right, he's a polarizing figure, and I think a lot of it had to do with his first few years. And, of course, you have to take into account everything that happened at Auburn with, his father Cecil and, people, still not even believing the fact that he didn't take money from Auburn, even though NCAA came out and said what they said. But I think even at the beginning of his career, he came out and he had the Superman, and he was doing, the first down things when they were down 20 points in the game. I think at the beginning he kind of rubbed some people the wrong way, but then he's matured a lot over the last few years. And it's just a little bit harder now, I think, for some people, some of his critics, quote unquote, to kind of massage back into who he is. But let's not take anything away from him. He has turned into a pure pocket passer, and he can run. He's 6'6", 250, and people saw Cam Newton kind of like Big Ben coming out of college, and I think people now are seeing those Big Ben features. He has the big arm, and he can probably run a little bit better than Big Ben. And he has his team 1 game away from a Super Bowl championship.
Is he a good enough leader to take his team to to win the Super Bowl?
I think so. I think that really 2 things are working out in his favor. Number 1, he's got a great veteran tight end in Greg Olsen, and that really kind of stabilizes the passing game. And they don't have elite receivers. They don't. And they don't have a great running game, but they have a pretty solid offensive line. And what really helps them out is the defense. Luke Kuechly and that defensive squad have been phenomenal this year. A lot of guys that you don't really hear much about, like Thomas Davis and guys like Josh Norman on the corner, and Roman Harper, former Alabama player, in their secondary. I just think that everything's kind of come together for this team, and Cam has matured enough to where they can now take the last 60 seconds of a ball game and come away with the championship. Even though I think Denver is a little bit better. I know I'll do predictions next week. I think Denver's a little bit better on paper going into the game, but Cam certainly has the ability to do it.
Well, the other side of the Super Bowl is the Denver Broncos and Peyton Manning. Will this be his final game?
It sounds like it from everything that has come out and from everything that he said, and now the reports have come out, what he told Bill Belichick at the end of the game and said, Coach, this might be my last rodeo. And you saw a really emotional moment from a coach you don't see much emotion from in Bill Belichick. And I think that everything is kind of come together. You look at this season, Brock Osweiler is the reason that they're here, is because he kept them alive and he kept them in the game, and it's because of him that AFC Championship game wasn't played in Foxborough. It was played in Denver because he kept this team rolling and gave Denver the overall number 1 seed in the AFC. And Peyton's arm is now not what it used to be, and he is in a situation where he could be like John Elway and leave on a Super Bowl note. All signs point to this being his last football game.
Another NFL quarterback, Jameis Winston, former Florida State quarterback, won a national championship. Thanks to Tom Brady, he's been added to the Pro Bowl roster.
Yeah, we're seeing this. A lot of these young quarterbacks, whether it's guys like Andrew Luck or it's Jameis Winston, Cam Newton, we're seeing a lot of these guys come into the NFL and have early success from a statistical standpoint. And it took Jameis a little bit longer than it took Andrew Luck and Cam.
Right.
But I think that he's kind of on that same trajectory. And if they can get the defense going, then I think that they have a lot to work with there down in Tampa.
You know, we love to talk about local players, former local players that have moved on to bigger teams and better things, and one of those being Quan Alexander, and what a great season he's had.
Yeah, we talked about that Tampa Bay defense, and he's part of that Tampa Bay defense. I mean, he is now the middle linebacker as a rookie. I mean, he's a 22-year-old, and the defense looks to him for every single play. He ended the season, but maybe not where he wanted to because of all the suspensions that happened. You know, with
Right.
with it wasn't HGH, but it was a banned substance that it was found in the energy drink. Some of the same thing that happened to Cody Blanchard of Cherokee County in baseball. But the kind of season he had, and especially towards the end, and after the unfortunate tragic passing of his brother, he had this phenomenal game against Atlanta where he had 11 tackles, a forced fumble, an interception. Ended the year with 93 tackles and 2 forced fumbles and 2 interceptions. You couldn't ask for much more of a rookie season out of Quan. And to think, 6 years ago he was playing across the street down at Oxford High School, and it's really good to see a guy like him kind of get his dues. He's on the All-Rookie team this year, and I would fully expect him to be a member of the Pro Bowl team in the years to come.
You know, we saw him have a great college career, but sometimes things don't play out going from college to pro.
Right.
How did he have such a great season, with that, even with the suspension and all that?
Well, I think a lot of it had to do with the defense that he walked into. The defense was on the way up, and it wasn't like a defense like Carolina's, where you have an entrenched leader there. You have
Right.
Luke Kuechly there who's leading the defense. Everybody plays their role. The Green Bay Packers, they have Clay Matthews. Everybody else plays their role. In Denver, you have DeMarcus Ware and Von Miller, and everybody else plays their role. He walked into a defense that was young and talented, but at the same time needed a leader, needed a voice, and he just stepped up. And he said, I'll take this team and I'll take this defense over. And they have a Levante Davis, which I think he's an incredible player for that defense. And they have Gerald McCoy, the guy from Texas. They have a defense that was just waiting for that next piece. And I just think that he became that next piece. And then he had a coach like Lovie Smith, who's not fired, but Lovie Smith is a defensive guy, and he helped create the defense that really was the stalwart of the defenses in the NFL about 5 or 6 years ago. And so I think with a defensive-minded head coach, he walked into a defense that was talented. He just played his role, and he stepped up really well.
Well, let's move over to the National Basketball Association. The Cleveland Cavaliers, interesting situation here as they fire their head coach.
You don't see this very often, where a guy who wins an Eastern Conference championship with the best player on the planet in LeBron James. Well, that's debatable with Steph Curry. Well, it's another topic for another day. But winning Eastern Conference championship and in first place in the East, and he gets canned. You don't see this very often, and it kind of points to the nature that, yes, unlike any other sport, professional basketball is driven by the stars.
Right.
But at the end of the day, the stars want to go to the guy they feel can win in April, May, and in June when it's the playoffs and it's the championship on the line. And the kind of surgency that Golden State Warriors have come out to and that the San Antonio Spurs have gotten out to, I just think that it feels to me almost like a panic move. That, there are these teams out in the West and they are just absolutely killing it. We're here first place in the East, but the East so far is so far below the West. And I think that this was a LeBron James move, no matter what they'll try to tell you in Cleveland otherwise. This is a LeBron James move. And at the end of the day, we'll see if this works out. But I think this kind of points back to he didn't have this power in Miami with Pat Riley. He does have this power in Cleveland. So basically, he called the coach, and so now he'll get his guy in Tyrone Lue. We'll see how it works out.
And it'll be interesting to see that. Thank you so much for joining us on this week's edition of The Locker Room. And of course, we'll be back next time with more great sports talk. And we'll see you then right here in The Locker Room.